Thank you all for dialing in this morning. This is a presentation, should be about an hour long. It's on cybersecurity for your businesses. These slides that we'll come on to, hopefully they'll be beneficial to you. They're not an A to Z list of exactly what you should do. It's considerations for you, what you may want to implement, and considerations of things that you might want to do and bring into practice to make yourself sort of conduct yourselves better and safer online. So I shall just continue with this. A brief introduction. You can probably all see me on the camera. It's nice to put a face to a name. Detective Constable John Hill with Cumbria Police. I'm on our cyber and digital crime unit. A little bit about me. I've been in policing for 19 years, previous specialisms in a few things. Fraud and money laundering was one of the big ones, and I moved into our unit in the last 2 years. And what I'm going to do there, like I say, is face to a name. I'm going to actually turn my camera off now. This is just to save on the bandwidth, I should say. So hopefully the presentation should then continue to run nice and smoothly. Yeah, so that's me. Another counterpart of mine is Niall McNicholas. He's a cyber-dependent crime specialist. He won't be joining us today. He's only 21, is Niall. He was a previous cyber apprenticeship at Energous out on the West Coast. Came to us on an apprenticeship here as well. We were so impressed with him. He's recently joined us 18 months ago as well. Our cyber and digital crime unit in Cumbria Constabulary, we were formed in 2019. It was because of an NPCC, that's a National Police Chief Council initiative that began in 2015. They wished for every constabulary to have some kind of cyber resilience due to the ever increasing amount of cyber crime that's been happening. And like I say, it led to 2019 for our department to be set up. We're overseen on a regional structure, as the other forces in the northwest. That's like Lancashire and Greater Manchester Police, Liverpool, Chester, and North Wales. We come under the Northwest Regional Organised Crime Unit. And we work closely with a lot of other forces in our region. And ultimately, a lot of the guidance that we'll mention in this presentation, a lot of the information we come out gets fed down from the NCSC, the National Cybersecurity Centre. The information is fed down through the National Crime Agency and then the region and then to all of our forces. And that's the structure of how we operate. And what do we actually do in this office here? Just to keep you on your toes, we'll work from this slide from the bottom up. Pursue, these are the relentless disruption, it says there, in prosecution of those committing cybercrime. All reports that are made of cybercrime to action fraud, they get fed back to us for us to investigate. That's one part of our role. Prevent is identifying those people becoming involved in cybercrime. Those stereotypically would be your young males between the age of 12 to mid-20s that begin a life of gaming and then knock each other off their PlayStation games and tend to be moving towards that life of cybercrime. Part of our role is identifying those and steering them away from that and pointing them in a direction of careers within that sort of cybercrime and cybersecurity industry and putting their skills to good use. This presentation is going to be focused on the top two, really, which is what myself and Niall focus on, is the protect and the prepare elements, which is reducing that vulnerability among our communities from the threat of cybercrime. That's everybody from individuals to business and charities and schools, and also making sure people are prepared so they know how to respond and how to react to that. And what I want to say from the outset is cybercrime, cybersecurity can seem quite daunting for some people. You know, it sounds very technical, it sounds very IT heavy. You know, you think you might be out of your depth. You know, I'm not Q. This isn't a James Bond film. I've only been in this role for 2 years myself. Cybersecurity doesn't have to be really complicated, and it shouldn't be, because 99% of people don't understand the real technicalities. The layperson wants a nice, simple understanding of what's useful to know, simple steps for them to follow that can make themselves safer. Ultimately, you know, you may employ an IT person for your business. Let them deal with the technicalities. and you sort of focus on the front-facing things that you can do to protect yourself and your business. So what's cybercrime? Two different types, really. Cyber dependent, this is what we would call the pure cybercrime. It can only be committed using a computer network or some other form of information communication technology. And this is what you would know as like the spread of viruses or malicious software, hackings and DDoS attacks. Now, DDoS, that's a distributed denial of service attack, which in simple terms is overwhelming or flooding a website with so much fake traffic it slows down or crashes, which if your business is solely web-based, you don't want to happen. And then there's cyber-enabled crimes. These are other crimes that could be carried out without the use of the internet, but criminals use the internet to do them because it increases their scale and the reach of their offending. And quite often we see a crossover between the two. You know, there may be a cyber-dependent crime attack, a malware attack that leads to a cyber-enabled fraud. You know, someone emails, gets hacked, they amend an invoice, that leads to a mandate fraud. We see a lot of crossover between the two. And this is what we're starting to see in the news more and more. They're almost weekly now. And these might be the big news stories that we see, but it does happen. And it happens in Cumbria. It happens to businesses in Cumbria. And I know because since we were set up 2 years ago, I've been investigating a lot of them. And we do have investigations ongoing with businesses that are subject of ransomware attacks, denial of service attacks, hackings, and subsequent frauds, large frauds that have a very, very damaging impact on businesses, which is why good cybersecurity is so important. You know, good cybersecurity reduces the risk of becoming victims of a cyber attack. That's pretty simple. And it protects your business's ability to operate. It protects the devices you all use and the services that you access, which is, you know, because all our devices and our use of them, of the internet, is fundamental to modern life and how we live and work. You know, we use everything so much now. I think I've checked my phone 20 times. I've been on the laptop. I've been on the computer at work. It's a part of every single day life, personal life and business life. And a few facts, don't want to get too heavy on this, but just so you know, this is for the Northwest region, the year 20 to 21. Cyber-dependent crimes increased 15% in the last year. That will continue to increase. I don't doubt that for a second that it will. But the problem is only 4% of computer misuse crime is actually reported. So those figures on the left are only 4% of what's happening. So to give you an indication of that, that's not 3,570 crimes, it's 89,000 cyber crimes happening in the Northwest. And the losses aren't 329,000, it's 8.2 million in the Northwest. And that is only the immediate sort of quantifiable financial loss through fraud or ransomware payments. You know, that doesn't include the knock-on effect of disruptions, especially in the business and organizations, to production, deliveries, cleanup costs and recovery costs. You know, an example that you can't put a figure on, the WannaCry virus, which was a ransomware attack on the NHS that brought it to a standstill in 2017, that resulted in the cancellation of thousands of operations, thousands of appointments, and a frantic sort of relocation of patients from wards and different hospitals. Now, you can't put a price on that, but there is a knock-on effect. And when it comes to your businesses and your organizations, 2 in 5 businesses report cybersecurity breaches. And this increases to 50%, 1 in 2 for micro and small businesses, with an average cost of £2,500 to them. Now, it might not seem a lot, and I know on the previous slide, some inflated figures, British Airways, you know, they can soak up a fine from the Information Commissioner's Office for £180 million for a data breach. But if you've got a very small company, that's the cost of a cyber attack and a subsequent fine, maybe £10,000, that can have, you know, that's an awful lot of money, and that can have a really sort of devastating impact really on your business, which again is why cybersecurity is so important. It protects your personal data, it protects your customer information that your business collects and uses and stores. Protects you from financial loss, that's the initial loss of revenue. It protects you from any fines from the Information Commissioner's Office. And also as a business, good cybersecurity protects you from suffering reputational damage. what would the relationship with your customers be like should you be the subject of any kind of attacks? If their data was stolen, would they lose some sort of trust in you? Would they shop somewhere else? And also, what doesn't come to mind first is it protects you from the sort of physical harm that a particularly damaging cyber attack may cause. And I've seen this in anxiety, in stress, in depression, the embarrassment, the shame if you've been the one that's allowed the malware unknowingly onto your system. It can have a real sort of impact on sort of the physical health of people. And yeah, cyber-enabled fraud accounts for 80% of all fraud across the country, 80% of it. The good news is, with some of the simple steps we'll come to, 80%, if people adopt some key simple measures, we can reduce that cybercrime by 80%. So who's doing all this? Who do we need to be worried about? The picture there on the left, on the right, is what most people envisage when they hear the word hacker, isn't it? It's a young guy in a dark room with his regulation black hoodie on, and he has to have his hood up, and you can't see the face, apart from the guy in the bottom left corner who's giving a bit of the game away. Now, that's what they use as an image, and that's what people think of. Threat actors is just an industry term to refer to someone who carries out sort of cybercrime. But there's different types. There's script kiddies that can have an impact on your business. This is individuals. These are the young ones. These are the young ones that start out in gaming, and they get a few off-the-shelf tools, watch a few YouTube videos, and just decide to have a go. They start knocking each other off games. They then want to shut their school website down. They then see a business, and they might just want to see if they can shut that local business's website down. They're not financially driven. They're not financially motivated. They're after kudos. They want recognition from their peers. They want to show their friends how good they are. So that's the script kids. You've got hacktivist groups. There's a famous group called Anonymous. They sort of carry out cyber crimes as part of, deface a lot of websites. They're more aimed at what they would propose to be the elite and corrupt governments and industries. OCGs, if you watch Line of Duty, we'll all know what an OCG is, an organised crime group. These are the very financially motivated groups. They will source tools off the dark web, that bad part of the internet, and they will target. They're very financially driven, and they'll use these tools repeatedly against multiple victims. Then we move on to advanced persistent threats, more technically able, and they'll normally target sort of bigger targets, I'd say. They'll have their own tools. These are the ones that you're looking at, the ransomware attacks that may affect your business. They're normally funded by governments. When we think the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, the North Koreans, they'll be funded by governments, but there'll be enough plausible deniability between the government and the groups themselves. So sort of the government's keeping their hands clean, though there really is a link between them. And state actors, these are the governments themselves that are involved in sort of political, economically motivated cyber espionage. So may not be a particular threat to our own small businesses in Cumbria. And another threat, though, that's really very relevant is your staff. Now, I'm not saying you need to look around the room if you're with anybody wondering who's the bad egg. That's not the case. But malicious or not, this is a consideration within your business for what measures you want to put in place to dictate how your staff can operate on your IT and on your network. You can implement access controls so staff can only access the information they need to do their job. And vulnerabilities, of which there are a few, and we'll come on to some of these in specific slides and in depth a bit more. But just to summarise here, out-of-date operating systems and applications. Technology, we all know, is evolving at a rapid pace, and every time something becomes too old, there's some vulnerabilities are identified. Criminals exploit these. No security, that's no antivirus at all. Hopefully that's obvious to everybody. You can't detect possible threats if you don't have the software to do it. And the sort of bigger companies, Norton, Bitdefender, McAfee, Kaspersky, those ones that you've heard of, which are not expensive to have, and I highly recommend it for people to do. I guarantee if you go on to any of their websites, they'll have a deal on, and you can get good antivirus, good anti-malware software for a very, very cheap price. And it's funny that a recent survey, 10% of people working remotely from home had no antivirus at all. 18% of them were unsure if their antivirus was even up to date. And if you think of the damaging impact that could have, if some malware got onto your computer and you didn't have the software there to identify it. IT support with no IT support, depending on the size of your company, you've got to balance this out with cost. Once your company's a sizable number of staff, some working in different departments across a network, you would strongly consider have some IT support there. Weak password security and management. This is a big one, and we'll come on to a slide about that later. Not backing up your data, same thing again. We're all guilty of this at times. You lose your phone, it's got a year's worth of photographs on it. Yes, that's a personal loss, but when it comes to business, if you don't back up that data, this is a huge thing, and we'll cover that in ransomware attacks on another slide. Remote working, home working, again, that comes with a whole range of issues, which we'll come on to and cover. And unfortunately, your staff again are, to me, as I see it, one of the biggest vulnerabilities to a business. And that is no reflection at all on yourselves or your staff, but the majority of criminals, the majority of hackers are not actually that smart. There are not that many cases I'm aware of where someone's device or network has been hacked directly. Most occasions, an employee has unknowingly or unintentionally allowed a hacker access to their network. It says there 32% of data breaches involve phishing. Those are phishing emails. We'll come on to them. 92% of all malicious software is delivered by email. And that requires a user to interact with it. That requires a staff member to open it, to click on it, to enter some details. Because these hackers, they want access to a network, and they choose the path of least resistance to do that. And that is usually relying on a user to make a mistake, which is, to me, when it comes to cybersecurity, the education and awareness of your staff is so vitally important. What you have to consider, what are you doing to raise the awareness of your staff? Because every employee nowadays, technical or otherwise, should possess some level of cyber awareness. Every one of your employees must understand they have a part to play in protecting your business from an attack. Because cybersecurity, as I see it, it's not something handled by a select few anymore. It's everybody's business. And only when a good cybersecurity hygiene, you could say, is promoted across the entire workforce, is all the rate of attacks going to slow down. So prevention is better than cure, by far. Obviously, we know that. So how are we going to protect your organization? It's quite simple. Recognize the importance of cybersecurity. Hopefully, those first few slides of introductions and what it is will have done that. What we're going to need to understand is, what's our position? Where are we? What have we got to protect? What have we got to look after? What have we got to do to make us safer and operate safer? And then you'll have to work out how to implement policies to keep your organization safe, to make sure you keep on top of all that. And then you've got to adopt some key behavioral changes. These are the simple steps that you need to do to start with to make yourself safer. And firstly, it's all about passwords, which I could talk about for longer than this whole presentation, I think, because passwords are funny things. That for years and years, we've been taught ourselves to make passwords harder and harder and harder for us to remember, yet actually easier for criminals to compromise. It's got to be at least 8 letters. It's got to have symbols. It's got to have numbers. We confuse ourselves. We've got too many. We don't know what to do with them all. Passwords are so critical when it comes to the security of all your accounts. I want to describe something to you. It's to explain something that are called rainbow tables. Passwords, you should have the longest password possible. Anything that's shorter then 8 symbols, and that's a combination of letters and characters and numbers. Criminals have something called rainbow tables, which is if you have a 6-digit password, if you enter that and it goes across the internet, that password's hashed. It's changed into a jumbled up number of letters and numbers. So it can't be read as it goes across the internet. The problem is cyber criminals have a table, rainbow table, that lists the hash value for every single possible password combination up to 8 characters. So that's why you've got to have passwords longer than that. And when it comes to all the passwords that you have, your email account has got to be the strongest. Your business email, your personal emails, they have to be the strongest passwords that you've got, because ultimately, if somebody compromises your email account, they have access to everything behind that. Personally, they've got access to your shopping, your banking, your social media accounts. Business, they've got access to all your business accounts and contacts in there. Your email account needs to be the strongest. And you really should consider using 2-factor authentication, certainly on your any of your business accounts or logins. Use 2-factor authentication. This is stronger than any password that you could ever think of stands alone. This is, as you know, type the password in, requires it to send a PIN to your phone, then put the PIN in. Utilize that on your business account. It's strongly recommended. And you could increase that as well, multi-factor authentication, whether that's, we use that on our phones, don't we, facial recognition or biometrics with the fingerprint. If you can utilize these on your business accounts as well, please do. It will make them much, much safer. And also I put change the default there. It's amazing the amount of people that get software or devices that come with a preset password. Manufacturers of IT are starting to change this, but when you get your router, and it comes with a default admin password, change the password from admin. Please do. And one thing to consider in all your passwords, for those of you that may, please do not have the names of your family, your children, your pets, your football team, or your favorite holiday destinations anywhere in any of your passwords. Normally when I'm doing face-to-face presentations with this, a few people sort of start to cringe a little bit because they're the things that are easy to remember, especially with children and their dates of birth. Makes your passwords very, very much easier to guess. And also you've got to think, if somebody does a little bit of passive reconnaissance, a little bit of open source research, how much of you is out there on the internet that people could see and get details from you to guess what your passwords might be? Not only just on your personal life, but everybody likes on a new business, we all like a little Meet the Teams page, and you put a little picture of yourself and a little profile. If I put mine there, it'd be John Hill, partners Gemma, children Isla and Holly, dogs Tilly, likes swimming in the Lake District and skiing in France. Well, there's so much about me that people can use to start to work out what my passwords can be. You've really got to think about how much you want to share with yourself and make yourself visible on the internet that people could use. So please don't have any of those things in any of your passwords. Your work emails completely separate from your personal passwords as well. I know there's a lot. We could manage those. You can have password managers. You can implement various password settings as well. You want to consider how your staff store their passwords, how they manage them. You know, sticky notes on the laptop is no good at all. They can utilize password managers, which are really, really good. They only need to require one password, and then that accesses all their other passwords in them. Something for you to consider. What I like to do, the National Cybersecurity Centre says put together 3 random words. Still a bit tricky for me sometimes with the amount of passwords we have. I use passphrases. Doddle. Skiing in Chamonix in winter, right? Use that as a password. It's nearly 30 characters long. Absolute doddle for me to remember, something that will never be able to be hacked purely just by the length of it. Passphrases, I think, are very, very good. And the 2 websites I put there, if you want to just have a look at those, Have I Been Pawned, which is when you consider all the data breaches, BA, Yahoo, the big data breaches, when criminals get all the emails and details, personal details from BA, and they leak these onto the internet. This website collects all those exposed details, and then you can search your own email addresses on there. I put my personal email in there and it found out that it had been subject on 4 separate data breaches, which then makes you want to reconsider your sort of exposure and maybe your security around that. And also, how secure is my password? A great one to get staff to have a look at. Go in there and type a few passwords in there. Gives them a guess of what sort of strength those passwords need to be. John123 is rubbish. And it kind of gives them a good sense of where you want to be. And you want to encourage your staff to go and have a look there. Phishing is a big one. As I said, 92% of malicious software is delivered by email. This is the main route in for cyber criminals. They are relying on you letting them into your business. They try to deceive you to click on a link in an email, open an attachment, allows malicious software onto your network, and it's low cost for suspects to orchestrate, a high volume of potential targets, and it continues to be very, very successful. The education and awareness of your staff around this is critical. We've all seen them. We all, some are obviously to spot, but we lead busy lives. We're busy at work. They're getting more convincing. They're getting better, and accidents can happen and things get clicked on. And these are a couple of the myriad of different examples that we have. If you're at work and you get an email like that on the left, this is what people are falling foul of. They see that and they click on it, and that immediately gets some malicious software onto your network. You've got to be very, very vigilant. For instance, hello user. Look at that email on the left. Hello user. Sorry, I'm John. If I've got an account with you, that's my name. You don't write that. And a lot of the times they're sort of pressing for time. Verify this within 24 hours or your account will be closed. You've got to be clued up to that. The one on the right can be a bit more difficult. This is like a business email compromise. If there's malicious software that's got onto your business network and an email of somebody in your business has been compromised, they can then intercept emails before it's forwarded on. So imagine it's an email from the boss to the payment department. They can intercept that email, or they can send emails directly to them. And these are really, really difficult, but there still will be that element of that sort of uncertainty in how it's written. It would be, the language might be different from what you would normally expect that person to send. There'll be that email of, I'm not available just now because I'm out playing golf, or I'm tied up in a meeting, but could you process this invoice as a matter of urgency? People are falling foul of that. Cumbrian businesses are falling foul of these, and it's costing them a huge amount of money. I would say, staff have got to be really, really clued up. It only takes, 1 minute to verify these emails, verify these payment emails that you're getting, and a 1 minute phone call could save a lot of money and a lot of embarrassment rather than them going through, and likewise in your personal emails, consider who's accessing in your company, who's accessing their personal emails on their work devices and what those consequences are. You all have mail filters and security on your work emails, but if you access your own emails on a work device and accidentally fall foul of a phishing email, that could compromise your whole business network. So that is a security issue. You might want to have a policy around that in your business about staff not being able to do that. Ransomware attacks. Quite simply, these are the ones that it's a type of malicious software, gets onto your company's network, and it encrypts all of your files so you can't access them. And then normally as you come on in the morning and log on, you'll have one little text file in the middle of your screen. You open it and it says, pay us £10,000 in Bitcoin within 24 hours, else you never get any of your files back ever again. These are putting businesses in a really, really difficult position. Pay or not to pay. What do I do? The entire business of this company has been encrypted and I can't run my company. And they're wondering what to do. Do I pay? Do I not pay? It's been seen in a business in Cumbria recently. They hadn't backed up any of their data and came in one morning and they were frantically scrabbling around with paper and pencil trying to somehow operate their business for a number of days because they couldn't access a single thing. It's crept into a business. It could cease all your business operations when you think about it. It's a data breach. You'd require notification to the Information Commissioner's office. There's certain differences in types of ransom. They could encrypt all your data and say you cannot access it for your business to operate. Or there's a ransom that we've got access to your data and we will publish it unless you pay us a certain amount. That payment's normally in cryptocurrency. We've all heard of Bitcoin nowadays. You can see it on that example, which was the WannaCry virus that hit the NHS 4 years ago. They wanted Bitcoin paid to that Bitcoin address underneath. That just is a way of laundering money through cryptocurrency that makes it very hard for law enforcement to trace. Something like happens like this to your company. There's the reputational damage, your customer confidence, the financial implications. How long can you operate? How can you continue to operate? Which is why on this element, when it comes to ransomware, so critical that within your business you back up your data. Certainly that is critical for the continued function of your business. What data is essential? What information that your business could not function without do you need to back up and back up regularly? Whether that be daily, weekly, monthly, and how do you back it up? There is no point backing up your data to a hard drive that's connected to your network that could easily be encrypted as well. It's got to be connected off the network. You want it in a separate location from your business, so sort of avoiding the threat of obviously fire or theft as well in your offices. Do you consider a cloud service to store all this data in? You need to back it up because, as it says there, you can't be held to ransom for all the data if you've already got it. If somebody launches a ransomware attack on your company and encrypts all your files on a Monday night, and you come in on a Tuesday, there's a little README file, we've encrypted all your files, pay this ransom. Well, if you backed it up on a Sunday night, you can go, no, why would I pay you that? I've got everything. Maybe you've lost a day. I've lost a day's worth of work, but that was yesterday. I can remember after that we'll be able to get on and can carry on operating our business without it because you can fall back to the backups. Without that, you're really, really going to struggle. So backing up your data, how you back it up and where you back it up is a really important consideration when it comes to ransomware attacks because they can be crippling to a business. Updates. This was touched on as the very first vulnerability, I think. Updates, they patch those vulnerabilities that have been identified by a manufacturer or somebody else. When you see Windows has got a new update version, this, that, or whatever, it's not just because it's got a nicer user interface and it looks all glossy. It's because they found half a dozen issues that are vulnerable that cyber criminals can exploit, and they need to make sure everybody updates those. So update your operating software every time a new one comes out. Update your application, set it to do it automatically. Because if you don't, you're running software that is much more likely to be exploited and you fall foul of that. And also consider the age of your devices. Something that happened very recently, there was something called QNAP, which make these sort of storage devices. And what happened was they had a model that was 9 years old and sort of reached its, what they would say, end of life. So they did not send out any updates or any patches for that because it was just too old. Problem was, thousands of people continued using these devices around the world. A vulnerability was found with that. Cyber criminals identified it and launched a worldwide ransomware attack on everybody that had one of these devices. That happened to somebody in Cumbria, and all of their files were encrypted and they were held to ransom for that, and they couldn't access a single thing. So if you consider, think of what you're operating with in your business, think of the age of it. Has it reached its end of its life? The software for that device, is it still supported? Very, very important. Remote working. This is an interesting one for a lot of people recently. The last 18 months particularly have seen a huge change to the way we all work. A huge number of us have had to adapt working remotely, working from home. I was previously office-based, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, outset of the pandemic, that had to change. And that picture is just because in my mind, that's what I thought I could do at home. I thought I discussed it with my partner. We'll change the kids' rooms round upstairs, a couple of £100, bit of furniture. I'll make a nice, light, modern working space in the spare room upstairs. Whereas in reality, it didn't quite turn out like that. My partner had the box room upstairs. I was on the kitchen table trying to homeschool 2 young children and trying to stop them touching daddy's laptop because, oh, daddy's got a touchscreen one and it's all much fancier than that. That might be a light-hearted example, but recent survey again, 10% of people working from home on work devices allowed their children to use them because it's easier, isn't it? When they're both fighting over the only one iPad in the house, one of them wants another computer, so you hand over your work laptop so they can watch something. That's a glaring security risk if ever there was one. Like to say, light-hearted example of that, but there's a big difference in security working from home as opposed to being in the office. Are you confident enough with your business if your staff are logging into your business network on their own devices? Are you happy that their security is strong enough? What antivirus, anti-malware software do they have on their own devices? How secure is their internet connection and their Wi-Fi routers? And their devices running up-to-date software? Who else is visiting their house and logging onto their Wi-Fi at the same time? You can implement a lot of security measures in the office, but you need to consider this if your staff are working remotely. How can you be sure your staff implement good security practices at home that could affect your business? And that's just working from home. As things start with Boris's announcements yesterday as well, as things start to open up again now, it's nice to get out and do business, but I want you to consider where you set up your business meetings and conduct your business. The perfect example being meeting over a coffee. There's nothing wrong with meeting in a coffee shop. As chains go, I prefer Nero's to Costa and Starbucks myself, but one thing they all have in common is their free Wi-Fi, which is a nice offer from them maybe, but remember this, coffee shops sell coffee, they don't sell security. I would like you all to consider that when using public Wi-Fi, it is insecure and you should not use it. You should not conduct any business or anything confidential or sensitive over public Wi-Fi, even if it's password protected. Because traffic over a public Wi-Fi can be intercepted, which that little black box there on the bottom left, it's something called a Wi-Fi pineapple. A silly name, I know, and since I've done this job, I found a lot of things to do with hacking have got silly names, but it's a Wi-Fi pineapple, and these can be used to conduct a man-in-the-middle attack. So so when you're in Nero's, if you're logging onto their free Wi-Fi, that person in the corner sipping his Americano, sat on his laptop, is actually intercepting all that traffic and making you think you're logging onto Nero's Wi-Fi, but you're actually logging on through him. If you're working remotely, use your own mobile data. Don't use public Wi-Fi. Don't use free Wi-Fi spots anywhere. And use a virtual private network. Use a VPN. You may utilize these already. For those that don't know, a VPN, it just encrypts your data end to end and makes a secure tunnel through the internet between you and who you are connecting to. There's a huge number of them out there. The big companies, the Norton, the Bitdefender, they all offer them. There's free ones, but even the ones you pay for, they're not expensive considering the security that it offers you. So a real thing to consider there. The business perspective, ultimately on all those risks and things that are out there, it comes down to risk. You need to prioritize your risks and manage these. You've got to think, look across the board, assess your position. What could happen in this business? What is the likelihood of it actually happening, and what would be the impact of it? And you kind of need to sort of compile a list of probable and possible threats. And when you've identified these risks, you need to identify what countermeasure that you need to protect yourself from the risk and assess the cost of it. That doesn't sound too much of a mouthful. and you can decide what you want to do where those risks lie. And there's different things you can do. You can accept a risk, really, which is you put no countermeasures in place because the level of the risk doesn't justify the cost. So it's a clear example of that one. Say your business has some files on an unencrypted hard drive. It's not password protected. It's permanently attached to the network. But it doesn't matter. These files are old. The content isn't sensitive. There's no personal data. It may already be public-facing material. It doesn't pay to move it to cloud storage at an additional cost. So you accept the risk. Ultimately, if it went, it went, but it's there if you need it. That would be accepting the risk. Reducing the risk is where we really sort of focus on, which is you implement these countermeasures at a cost based on that risk. A clear example of that would be, a ransomware attack. You identify the risk of ransomware attacks happening. With this malicious software that would encrypt all your company files, you work out the cost of implementing the countermeasures. You educate your staff around the likely threat vector of phishing emails. You back up your data on a weekly basis, and you install an antivirus, anti-malware, software across your business devices. That's just reducing that risk. You can see what impact it would have. Could be devastating. You work what cost you can have to negate that risk. Avoiding a risk, stop doing the activity altogether. Hopefully I've imparted that on you. Don't use public Wi-Fi. It's not secure. Don't conduct your business, your personal, your confidential information, anything across public Wi-Fi. Or you can also transfer a risk if you wanted to. That would be, I would say, mostly around sort of data storage. You could transfer that risk to a third-party cloud storage that may have their own insurance and would be liable for any fraud or data theft from it. Again, you then assess the costs associated with that. So that's what you kind of need to think of when it comes to that risk. And what are the risks? Generally broken down into two parts. This is a very sort of broad two parts without overwhelming it. The risks that you face, information risks, that's your storage of sensitive customer information, your personal information, financial information, company sensitive data. That's your general information risk. What you hold, how you're going to protect that. Then you've got your operational risks. This is the IT side. This is your web portals, your user devices, the devices your staff are using, your staff themselves, your web-enabled tools, your databases, your servers, the hardware, the software in itself. Those are your operational risks and how it's used by your staff. And you've got to consider risks around both sides for your business and how to address that. And there's no one side more important than the other. I think it's been found that businesses tend to focus on the operational risks. That's, the malware protection, implementing sort of staff password policies, having network firewalls and restricting IT rights. That's IT administrative rights, which is giving your staff the minimal level of access they need to successfully actually perform their role. And security policies around these operational areas are really common, whereas rules around informational risks, such as personal data storage and transfer, are far less common, though no less important. But you've got two broad sort of areas of risk there that you really need to consider, and how you tolerate it. It's disaster recovery. Sounds quite serious, but as an sort of an analogy, as it were, three things. Can you recover from it? How long can you do without it? How can you operate whilst you recover? For me, that's as many coffees as I need by about 8 o'clock in the morning. If I wake up and I don't have any coffee, can I recover from it? Yes, I can. I can just get more coffee, ultimately. How long can you do without it? Not very long. I need a few in the morning, but maybe by 9 o'clock, once I can go and buy some more. How can you operate whilst you recover? A little bit fuzzy maybe, but I'll be able to get through. That's a comical sort of example, but you've really got to consider how you tolerate those risks. Can you recover from a certain cyber attack, from a certain risk? If there are critical systems or assets that you've identified in your business, that if you had no access to them, you cannot recover from it, then it should never happen. You've got to identify how you can make sure that never happens. You need to prioritize those risks and manage them above anything else. How long can you do without it? If your business is solely web-based, how long can you run your business if the website gets taken down? They use the term maximum tolerable downtime. I think, how long can you operate your business for? A day, 2 days, 3 days? You have to you've got to know that, certainly before, and hopefully it never does happen. And how can you operate your business while you recover? If all your files are encrypted, hopefully you've got the backup. If your website gets taken down, it's all about having plans for this worst case scenario. If your business website goes down and you have no access to the files, you've got to think, what's the plan? How do you communicate with customers? How do you financially transact? How do your staff behave? How do you manage that? How do you continue your business activity? And having business policies and cyber incident response plans can address how you and your staff operate around these risks, how you respond, and they give clarity to that. All know their roles and responses should any threat come to reality. And I know that's a lot talking about policies and cyber incident response plans. You think, well, that's a bit above me. Where do I go? When you're addressing all of this, your policies, your plans, one obvious consideration would be to seek guidance from external cybersecurity consultants, IT consultants, managed service providers, whatever you wish to call them. What I would say is, if you're already doing that, great. If you're not, consider it. But bear this in mind, cybersecurity is a big industry. It's a big industry, and there are many, many solutions being sold by many professional salespeople. And fear sells, doesn't it? Before you engage with any IT salesperson for your business, review your business position, know what your risks are and what action you would like to take with them. Because you need to be in a position to approach an IT vendor informed of your position. Because what you want to hear from them when you take it to them, what you want to hear from an IT vendor is, tell me what you need, and I will tell you what your options are and how much they will cost. Rather than walking in there blind and saying, I need something. Because if you go into if you went into a large sort of electrical retail store and said, I'm after a new TV, and that's all you said, they're going to take you to the biggest, shiniest TV that costs the most money and try to sell you that, because it's a business. And ultimately, it won't be the one you want, but you'll get suckered into it, you'll buy it, it won't fit properly in your lounge, and it does more stuff than you'll ever need it to do. Go informed to the IT people, to the service providers that you're looking for. Go with that knowledge, know what you want, so what you get fits your business. It's very, very important. Last few slides, what I want to cover is police cyber alarm, which is, does what it says on the tin there, monitors malicious activity your organization faces from the internet. It's free, which is fantastic. And it offers free weekly and monthly reports on the activity discovered on your devices. And it even offers something called vulnerability scanning, which can cost a huge amount of money from an IT vendor desk. It's an initiative that was launched, again, a Home Office-based initiative launched through the National Police Chiefs Council, and it's only been up and running this year. But it is free for all small and medium enterprises to have. There's a lot of gumph on that slide. Don't try and get too sort of roped into that, but basically you can download a virtual police cyber alarm, and it sits just inside your firewall of your business, and it monitors all traffic coming in to your network through the internet. It monitors everything. It doesn't monitor the content of it. So if you're thinking it's going to read the emails, it's going to read the documents, it doesn't. So there's no issues when it comes to GDPR or sensitive information or any trade secrets or anything like that. It monitors the metadata. It monitors what traffic's coming into your organization. It works like a CCTV camera. Now, what that does is, with every week or every month, depending how often you want to report, it can show where that traffic's coming from, and it can highlight suspicious activity targeting your business. And then that allows you to identify where those vulnerabilities are and shut them. It might be, depending on your technical knowledge, if you've got port numbers, if you've got a couple of ports open on your network and a specific type of malware is targeting that port, then the report will highlight that up and you'll be able to close it. The benefit for this is it also, with the monthly reports it feeds you, it feeds police the same reports as well. and that identifies to us the current threats and trends in sort of like cyber attacks that then law enforcement are able to use. So it's a great tool. It's free. It monitors that traffic. It helps you sort of protect your network and address any vulnerabilities that you may have with any traffic coming into your company. I think it's a fantastic tool. Like I say, it's completely free, which is a great resource. And one of the last things I also want to touch on, the Cyber Resilience Centre. I'm going to put free in there again because it is another National Police Chief Council run initiative. There's one in the Northwest region. It's based in Manchester. It's for the whole of the Northwest. It's established, say 2019. It's really only been up and running fully across the Northwest the last few months. It's support. It helps protect small businesses in our region. It works with academia. It works with universities. It works with a network of leading cybersecurity companies and the police to give members access to the latest information on emerging cyber threats, trends, best practice, and it gives businesses guidance to help protect them sort of from cyber criminals. And like I say, membership is free, which is fantastic. It's well worth recommending going onto their website and having a look and engaging them. There are other sort of, let's say, put membership options on there. You can have core memberships free. There's a business starter membership for 250 quid. £500 is like a business enhanced membership. It offers training, cybersecurity to staff within your business. It helps you in like setting up cybersecurity policy templates. It's a fantastic resource. So the Cyber Resilience Centre and the Police Cyber Alarm, I would really, really push government-led initiatives that can have a fantastic benefit to the cybersecurity and resilience of your business. And lastly, I was going to title this slide the "If It All Still Goes Wrong" slide, but I didn't think that was saying very good, so I called it "The Importance of Reporting." Ultimately, if you have an issue, a cyber issue, you will approach your IT service provider, your managed service provider. That will be your first port of call and react to resolve any incident you have. That's completely understandable. You would hopefully have your policies, you would hopefully have your response plans about how to react and who does what role and how to address that. And you should have everything in place by then. You should have your backups. You should have everything there so that your business critical functions can continue. But what I would encourage, if you are a victim of any kind of cyber incident, is to report it. It's massively underreported. I said at the start, it still is. The national model is to report it through action fraud. Any kind of cyber crime will be reported to action fraud that gets fed back to us here. Because the only way that I think law enforcement, be that nationally or internationally, gets a really clear picture of the threat vectors and ever-changing landscape of cyber attacks is if we actually know about them. And if people don't report them, we don't know. So that's the only way we can evolve ourselves, if we know about them, to combat them. And as for phishing emails, the big thing about phishing emails, you might say, well, we're getting all these phishing emails. What do we do about them? Last year saw the launch of the Suspicious Email Reporting Service, SIRS as it's known. It was established by the National Cybersecurity Centre to tackle the spread of malicious phishing emails at scale. Any suspicious emails you get that you receive, it is as simple as just forwarding it to that email address on there and then deleting it. You don't need to do anything else. Dodgy email, send it to report@phishing.gov.uk. Brilliant. Then don't need to do anything else. Since last year, they have received 5.5 million reports. That's 5.5 suspicious emails. It's led to 81,000 URLs, that's internet or web addresses, and 41,000 scam campaigns being removed and being taken down, which is phenomenal. It's really, really good. So any suspicious emails, firing them that way. Text, not so much of the business-wise, but personal text, you just forward those to 7726 as well. It's a similar sort of thing. That's your like HMRC text scams and things like that. And also the Information Commissioner's Office, you will know about this as business. Any data breach or even a suspected data breach, you can put the ICO on notice. You know, you have an legal obligation to report this. You know, you don't want to be found out for having not reported. And those are just, this is just a slide from the NCSC, 6 key behavioural changes. Do these small steps, we've covered them. Separate password for your email accounts, your business email accounts, make them strong, make them long. You know, you can save passwords in your browser, use a password manager, update your devices. It's so key, it's critical. Update them, don't run outdated applications or operating software. Use two-factor authentication. It's stronger than any password ever by itself. And back up your important data, critical to your business. So if you're subject to any ransomware attacks, it's absolutely key. And I was going to put useful links. You just need this one. You look in too many places on the internet, it just becomes confusing. The National Cybersecurity website is by far the best. I'd go there, I'd start there, I'd stay there, because for businesses, small, medium enterprises, individuals, organizations, it's, other than signposting you to a specific IT vendor, which I can't, I'm not a salesperson in that way, they will cover, that website will cover all the questions. It'll help you with other things that we haven't covered here, you know, your 10 steps to cybersecurity. It's got small business guides, response and recovery guides. It will detail in there if you want to move your business to Cyber Essentials accreditation, what you can do. Everything you need to consider as a small and medium business. Reviewing your business position, consideration of risks, a wealth of information for you. I think it's fantastic cybersecurity advice across the board on that one. I think we've been talking an awful lot, but I think that is 2 minutes just shy of the hour. And that's kind of it from me. I don't know. It says questions, whether it's, my emails are there. My emails are there. Like I say, I hope you found it useful. I hope you found it beneficial. It covers the sort of simple steps, the simple things we need to do to protect ourselves. If you want to start getting in depth then about the policies and the recovery plans, discuss that with your IT vendor, but know what the risks are, know where those threats may be, know where you may be vulnerable, work out what the risk is and go informed before approaching someone, or discuss it with your current IT vendor to ensure you are at the best place and fully protecting your business.